if I told you that to truly understand the biggest pop song of the decade, you have to look at the mating habits of the Australian bowerbird, a 1970s slap-based jump scare, and a multi-million-dollar loophole in modern copyright law.
I mean, it sounds like a completely chaotic mix of disciplines, right?
Yeah, totally.
But that is the actual anatomical breakdown of what makes a modern mega hit function. We're talking about engineering a bulletproof emotional and cultural response to trauma.
Yeah.
And then, hiding it inside a track that you dance to in your kitchen.
Okay, welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into an extensive, multi-layered breakdown of Miley Cyrus's record-breaking, inescapable anthem, Flowers.
Right, which was literally everywhere.
Everywhere. But we aren't here to do a simple surface-level review of the track. We're going to explore how this seemingly straightforward pop song operates as a deeply intricate lyrical, musical, and psychological post-mortem of her marriage to actor Liam Hemsworth.
And honestly, looking at the stack of materials we're pulling from today, this goes so far beyond basic celebrity gossip.
Oh, it really does.
The sources provided for this analysis are genuinely staggering in their scope. I mean, we are pulling from deep-cut Reddit music theory threads where audio engineers are passionately debating chord structures.
Which is a whole world on its own.
Exactly, and we have actual Ableton music production tutorials breaking down the exact digital plugins used to physically manipulate the listener's nervous system.
Plus, we're pulling from legal documents filed in a highly publicized, incredibly complex copyright lawsuit over this very track. We've got deep pop culture analyses, and maybe most surprisingly, we are diving into academic lectures on evolutionary biology and psychology.
Which is vital, by the way, because to understand why a song about a breakup resonates with billions of people, you literally have to understand the biological drive for shelter and courtship.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to promise you, the listener, right now we are going to uncover how a track that you have probably hummed along to in the grocery store uses hidden time signatures, what producers call slingshot silences, and the evolutionary imperative of nest building to become the ultimate emotional regulator.
It's a huge promise, but the sources back it up.
They really do. But to see how all those massive concepts tie together, we have to start with the foundational text, the lyrical autopsy.
Yeah.
We need to look at the literal words Miley is singing and the deeply specific real-world trauma they reference.
Right. And what's fascinating here is that the overarching narrative of this deep dive is how to engineer bulletproof response to a life-altering event.
Yeah.
Step one of that process is always addressing the trauma head-on. You can't heal from something you refuse to name, And the song opens with this incredibly vivid, wistful, and highly specific memory.
She sings, "We were right till we weren't, built a home and watched it burn." Now, if you somehow missed the cultural lore surrounding this relationship, we need to clarify that this is not a metaphor.
No, not at all.
This isn't poetic license about a spark fading. This is a direct, literal reference to her 10-year relationship, her 8-month marriage to Liam Hemsworth, and a very specific, catastrophic event.
Yeah, the lyric references the tragic Woolsey fire in November 2018. That wildfire devastated Southern California. It burned nearly 100,000 acres.
Unbelievable.
And it completely, entirely destroyed their shared Malibu home. All that was left were the concrete letters spelling LVE that had previously sat on their patio.
Wow. And we have to pause and really understand what that specific home meant in the context of her life and their relationship. This wasn't just, a piece of high-end Hollywood real estate they bought as an investment.
No, so much more than that.
This Malibu property was her sanctuary. It was the exact location where she recorded her breakout 2007 album, Meet Miley Cyrus. It was the physical anchor of her adult identity. It was where she transitioned from a child star to an autonomous artist.
And it was the crucible of their relationship. I mean, Hemsworth actually stayed behind during the evacuation to save their numerous animals from the blaze while she was in South Africa filming an episode of Black Mirror.
Right. The stakes were literally life and death.
Exactly. The physical destruction of that home acts as the inciting incident of the song's narrative, and frankly, of the end of their marriage. Cyrus has openly discussed how their relationship was built on a foundation of both intense love and intense trauma.
Right, trauma bonding.
Precisely. The fire fundamentally shifted the foundation of their partnership. The home they built wasn't just wood, glass, and recording equipment. It was the psychological safety they had constructed over a decade.
It was the container for their relationship.
Yes. And watching it burn, quite literally, forced a reckoning that they could no longer avoid. When the physical structure vanished, the internal fractures became impossible to ignore.
Which brings brings us to how she chose to release this reckoning to the world, because the timeline here is aggressive. The song was released on January 13, 2023, which just happens to be Liam Hemsworth's 33rd birthday.
That is a detail that the public immediately latched onto, and for good reason. It frames the entire release, not just as an artistic endeavor, but as a highly calculated, unignorable personal statement.
Oh, absolutely.
It ensures that the subject of the song cannot simply ignore its existence.
And the visual Easter eggs in the music video double down on that statement. There's this very specific sequence where Miley is walking up a hill in a vintage gold Samarant dress, and she looks at the camera and mimics this low, somewhat awkward, grinding dance move.
Right, the dancing.
Now, pop culture analysts in our sources immediately trace this motion back to a highly viral, very uncomfortable moment from the 2019 Vanity Fair Oscars after party.
Yes, the red carpet interview where the power dynamic of the relationship was on full public display.
Exactly. They were doing a standard press interview, and Miley, being Miley, starts to playfully dance and grind on him, and Liam's body language instantly stiffens.
It's so hard to watch.
It really is. He looks incredibly uncomfortable. He literally rolls his eyes, steps away, and tells her, "Sweetheart, don't do that. We're on the carpet." He publicly asked her to suppress her natural personality.
Yeah.
And in the music video for Flowers, she executes that exact same dance move, completely alone, looking directly into the camera.
It's a profound visual reclamation of bodily autonomy. She is taking the exact motion that was policed and shamed, and she's performing it in a vacuum of her own design, entirely unbothered.
Completely unbothered.
It's a way of reclaiming her physical narrative. And this level of intentionality in the video fed directly into the broader cultural lore that surrounded the song's release.
Oh, you're talking about the Villa rumor. Yes, we need to talk about how the internet reacted to this video. Now, the internet went completely wild with rumors about the filming location of the music video.
They really did.
There was a massive viral theory claiming that the stunning, sprawling mansion where Miley filmed the video was the exact same villa where Liam allegedly cheated on her with 14 different women.
Wow.
Now, we don't know if that's true, and frankly, whether it's factual almost doesn't matter for our analysis. We are definitely not taking sides or saying this happened. What matters is that fans were so primed by the song's narrative of betrayal and reclamation that they accepted this rumor as absolute gospel.
The rumor functioned as a collective myth-making exercise. Listeners were actively looking for hidden daggers in every single frame of the video because the lyrics themselves invited that level of forensic scrutiny.
But amid all that potential shade, the red carpet references, the birthday release date, there is this moment of absolute raw vulnerability in the pre-chorus that stops you in your tracks.
The part where she admits she wanted to stay.
Yes. She sings, "I didn't want to leave you, I didn't want to lie, started to cry, but then remembered." And if you cross-reference that with her actual press interviews from 2019, right around the time their split was announced, she explicitly stated that she didn't want to hold back who she was anymore.
Right.
She famously noted she wasn't meant to be in a femming apron cooking dinner.
Which creates a fascinating, almost jarring juxtaposition within the song itself. On one hand, you have this defiant, fiercely independent posturing in the chorus. But leading up to it, you have the raw confession that she genuinely wanted the relationship to work.
Yeah, she really tried.
The effort to stay was real.
Yeah.
She didn't want to leave.
And that's where I have to push back a little on this idea of the song being a pure empowerment anthem. Like, if she is so mature, if she has truly moved on to this enlightened place of self-love and healing, isn't it incredibly petty to drop the song on his birthday?
It is a little petty, sure.
Right. How does that deliberate, calculated, somewhat spiteful jab square with the objective, mature tone the rest of the song is trying to portray?
What's fascinating here is that tension is actually what makes the song function psychologically. The sources discuss a concept called objective realism.
Okay, objective realism.
Yeah. In human psychology, true healing rarely looks like a perfectly sanitized, emotionless state of zen. We have this culturally enforced idea that a good breakup means you just peacefully drift apart and wish each other the best.
Right, the conscious uncoupling vibe.
Exactly. But objective realism means acknowledging the messy, contradictory, and sometimes petty nature of grief.
So, holding two conflicting emotions at the same time.
Yes. By admitting the desperate effort to stay, I didn't want to leave. And by acknowledging the sheer depth of the loss, the song prevents itself from falling into delusional denial.
I see.
If she had just sung, "I never loved you anyway, I'm perfectly fine without you," it would feel entirely fake. the listener's subconscious would reject it as a brittle defense mechanism.
It would sound like she was trying to convince herself, not us.
Precisely. The fact that she admits she cried, the fact that she admits she didn't want the marriage to end, is the very thing that makes the soaring empowerment of the chorus feel earned.
That makes a lot of sense.
Even the petty elements, like the birthday release date, ground the song in undeniable human reality. It's not a sanitized fantasy of a perfect, clean breakup. It's the gritty, somewhat spiteful, deeply sad reality of a real human being processing the end of a decade-long bond.
That reframes the whole track for me. It's the difference between toxic positivity just plastering a smile over a wound and actual hard-fought resilience. But I want to dig deeper into that specific idea of the home they built, because the sources we have suggest this goes way deeper than just losing a Malibu mansion. Why does that specific lyric about building a home and watching it burn carry so much subconscious weight?
We have to step out of Hollywood.
Yeah, to answer that, we actually have to look at the evolutionary biology of courtship.
This is where the biological imperative of shelter becomes incredibly relevant to pop music, which I know sounds strange until you look at the mechanics.
It sounds super weird, but the sources nail it.
In the animal kingdom, the construction of a home or a nest is rarely just about surviving the elements. It is a fundamental, high-stakes display of fitness, intelligence, and capability designed specifically to attract and secure a mate.
The sources outline this brilliantly. They talk about male lobsters, for instance, attracting mates by creating the biggest, deepest, safest burrows possible. A strong burrow signals to the female that this male can provide security. But the most striking example in our research, the one that perfectly parallels the flowers narrative, is the bowerbird.
Oh, the bowerbird is a marvel of evolutionary psychology. Its behavior perfectly illustrates the stakes of nest building.
It is unbelievable. So you, the listener, picture this. The male bowerbird builds these elaborate twig structures called bowers right on the forest floor, and he doesn't just build a functional, messy nest to sleep in.
No, it's an architectural project.
Literally. He meticulously sweeps the front yard of the bower, using his wings to clear away any dead leaves or debris so the ground is perfectly smooth, and then he decorates it.
With a very specific color palette.
Yes, he gathers bones, shells, shiny stones, and he has this massive, inexplicable preference for the color blue. So he'll scour the forest for blue flower petals, blue berries, or even blue pieces of plastic if humans are nearby, and he arranges them into a literal piece of abstract art in front of the bower.
And this behavior has been analyzed extensively by evolutionary biologists, and is highlighted in our sources through lectures by psychologist Jordan Peterson, who points out that this bower building is a prime, undeniable example of female mating choice driving the evolution of the species.
Wait, how so? What does the female do?
Because the female bowerbird doesn't just blindly accept the first mate she sees. She actively hops around the neighborhood, deeply inspecting these various abstract art installations.
Like she's at a gallery.
Quite literally. She is looking for markers of intelligence, artistic capability, resourcefulness, and dedication. She's making a highly complex judgment about the male's genetic fitness based on his ability to curate a safe and beautiful environment.
She is literally acting as an art critic. Her aesthetic judgment determines whether his genes get passed on.
Exactly, and the stakes of that judgment are incredibly high. If she rejects the male's bower, or if, say, 3 different females in a row inspect it and walk away, the male bowerbird experiences a recognizable biological response.
He gets mad, right?
He gets incredibly frustrated. He will literally throw a tantrum, furiously brush away all his beautiful blue petals with his wing, completely destroy the nest he spent weeks building, and start all over again from scratch. The rejection of the home is a rejection of the self.
It is so dramatic. But if we pull this biological imperative back to Miley, Cyrus, and Liam Hemsworth, their Malibu home wasn't just a collection of expensive real estate. It was the foundational biological anchor for their partnership. It was the bower they built together over 10 years.
Precisely. In human psychology, the shared home represents the ultimate culmination of courtship. It is the physical, tangible manifestation of the partnership's security.
Yeah.
When you build a home with someone, you are signaling to your nervous system that the courtship phase is successful, and you are now in a secure harboring phase.
So, think about it like this. Imagine that male bowerbird standing proudly in front of a meticulously arranged blue flower made by his side. But instead of a normal life cycle where they raise their young, imagine a sudden, catastrophic wildfire comes through and burns the bower to the ground in a matter of minutes.
just total destruction.
Nature destroyed the nest, and suddenly these two birds are standing in the smoking ashes with absolutely no protective shelter, forced to look at each other and face the raw, terrifying reality of their incompatible relationship. The distraction of the beautiful home, the shared project of building it, is totally gone.
That is a highly evocative analogy, and it cuts right to the psychological core of the song. Without the external physical structure of the home to bind them together, the internal fractures of their relationship became impossible to ignore.
The fire exposed everything.
Yes, the trauma of the fire violently removed their psychological shelter. It stripped away the aesthetic distractions. So when Miley sings, "Built a home and watched it burn," she isn't just giving a real estate update. She is describing the biological and psychological collapse of their mating bond.
It gives me chills thinking about it that way, the vulnerability of standing in the ashes of your own life. But what makes Flowers so fascinating is that the lyrics don't just reference her literal biological past. They also pull incredibly heavily from her musical past.
Yes, placing her in a long tradition.
Exactly, a long storied tradition of artists talking back to each other across time.
You're referring to the tradition of the response song or the answer song.
Right. According to the deep dive from the switched on pop source we have, this format has been a staple of the music industry for decades. It's a format where an artist writes a song specifically to reply to, challenge, or subvert the narrative of a pre-existing song.
It's a really rich history.
It is. The source notes how Woody Guthrie wrote the American folk classic "This Land Is Your Land" as an angry populist response song to Irving Berlin's highly sanitized "God Bless America." Guthrie was essentially saying, no, your version of America isn't accurate, here is mine.
Or in the 90s, R&B group TLC wrote the massive hit No Scrubs. And almost immediately, the hip-hop group Sporty Thieves wrote a direct response song called No Pigeons.
Yeah, it creates a musical dialogue. It turns pop music from a monologue into a conversation. But in the case of Flowers, the dialogue is deeply personal, specifically referencing Bruno Mars's 2012 heartbreaking, chart-topping piano ballad, "When I Was Your Man."
And the connection here is wild. The rumor, again, deeply embedded in the cultural lore of this specific relationship, is that Liam Hemsworth actually dedicated "When I Was Your Man" to Miley at some point during one of their many breakups and makeups over that 10-year span.
Right, it was supposedly his plea to her.
So what does Miley do a decade later? She systematically maps out the lyrics of Bruno Mars's chorus and violently, surgically inverts them.
The structural parallel is undeniable. It is a masterclass in lyrical inversion. Let's look at it. Bruno sings from a place of profound, passive regret. He is looking back at a failed relationship and lamenting what he failed to do.
He sings, "I should have bought you flowers and held your hand."
Should have gave you all my hours when I had the chance. Take you to every party because all you wanted to do was dance.
He's just listing his failures.
Right. And Miley steps up to the microphone, completely flips the perspective from a passive victim of a breakup to an empowered protagonist, and responds point by point. She says, I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours, say things you don't understand. I can take myself dancing, and I can hold my own hand.
This is so direct.
She took a tragic ballad about what a man failed to do for a woman and weaponized it into a driving anthem about what a woman.
He is a brilliant subversion of the original text. It takes the very weapon that was supposedly used to win her back Bruno's song and turns it into the shield she uses to walk away.
Wow.
But that structural brilliance has recently landed her in a massive, highly complex legal battle.
Oh, the copyright lawsuit. Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is where the music industry politics get really gritty and where we have to look at how art intersects with commerce.
Right.
In late 2024, an entity called Tempo Music Investments filed a massive copyright infringement lawsuit against Miley Cyrus, her co-writers, and her record labels, claiming that Flowers intentionally copied the melody, harmony, and chorus of the Bruno Mars track.
Which introduces a fascinating legal wrinkle regarding who actually gets to control a piece of art. Because Tempo Music Investments is not a songwriter.
No, they're not.
They are an investment firm backed by Providence Equity Partners and Warner Music Group. And they only partially own the copyright to When I Was Your Man. They purchased the catalog rights of one of the song's co-writers, Philip Lawrence.
Right, and here is the absolute kicker. Bruno Mars himself, the face of the song, the voice of the song, the main writer, is not a plaintiff in this lawsuit. He isn't suing her.
No, he hasn't said a word about it.
He hasn't said a word. This massive corporate investment firm is the one claiming injury.
And Miley's legal team, predictably, fired back with a motion to dismiss the lawsuit entirely. Their defense is multi-layered and targets the very foundation of how music is written.
What's their main argument?
Well, first, they point out what they call a fatal flaw in the lawsuit, arguing that under the U.S. Copyright Act, only owners of exclusive rights can sue for infringement. Because Tempo Music only owns a fractional share of the song, Miley's lawyers argue they don't have the legal standing to sue without the other co-owners, like Bruno Mars, joining the suit.
Okay, but wait, let me play devil's advocate here, or at least argue the side of Tempo Music for a second. If Miley Cyrus intentionally mapped out his exact rhyming scheme, matched the exact syllabic cadence of the chorus, and inverted the lyrics specifically to capitalize on the public lore of his song, isn't that essentially stealing his intellectual property footprint?
That's the argument they're making, yeah.
Like, she used the cultural weight of When I Was Your Man to make Flowers a hit. Why shouldn't the owners of that original song get a cut of the profits? If you completely invert the meaning of a song, is it a ripoff or is it a completely new piece of art?
That is the multi-million-dollar philosophical question in music copyright today. Where is the line between inspiration and theft? To answer that, we have to distinguish between two legal concepts: an interpolation and a thematic homage.
Okay, break this down.
An interpolation is when an artist takes a specific tangible element like a melody line or an instrumental hook from an older song and re-records it in a new song. When you do that, you are legally required to give songwriting credit and share the royalties. Think of Ariana Grande interpolating My Favorite Things in her song Seven Rings.
Got it. And Miley explicitly did not credit Bruno Mars or Philip Lawrence on Flowers.
Exactly. Because Miley's legal team argues that this is not an interpolation, it is a thematic homage. Musically, the actual notes being sung are completely different.
The melodies don't match.
Right. The tempo is entirely different too. Bruno's is a slow, mournful 73 beats per minute, while Miley's is a driving, danceable 118 beats per minute.
Right.
Now, yes, the lawsuit claims they share similar chord progressions, specifically heavily featuring the A minor chord, which sets a distinct melancholic mood. But as one of the Reddit music theorists on our social media points out, tens of thousands of sad pop songs start with an A minor chord. You cannot copyright a vinyl. You cannot copyright a basic chord progression.
Right. The A minor chord is literally just the white keys on a piano starting from A. You can't own that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Music history is built on shared harmonic foundations. Miley's lawyers argue that the similarities between the two songs are nothing more than random, scattered, unprotected ideas and musical building blocks.
Which makes sense.
If you allow a company to copyright the idea of a list of regrets over a minor chord progression, you effectively paralyze the entire songwriting industry.
So, legally and creatively, it is a lyrical conversation, not a musical theft. But here's the thing. To truly pull off that conversation, to flip the script from a sad, regretful piano ballad into a massive global empowerment anthem, the lyrics alone aren't going to cut it.
Definitely not.
You can write the most empowering words in the world, but if the music drags, nobody is going to feel empowered.
Precisely. The music itself has to perform a highly specific psychological trick on the listener's brain. The production has to match the narrative arc of the lyrics.
And that brings us to the production engine of the track. How producers Kid Harpoon and Tyler Johnson built what one of our Reddit sources lovingly refers to as Superfunk Man.
I love that name.
It's so good. And I want to spend a lot of time here because the Ableton production tutorial source provides a fascinating microscopic window into how this track was engineered to manipulate our emotions.
It is a masterclass in audio engineering. They start by creating a deliberate, profound sense of isolation.
Yes. If you listen to the very first few seconds of Flowers, it is incredibly sparse. It opens with this vintage, slightly muffled Wurlitzer-style electric piano playing that simple A minor to C to G to C major 7 progression.
And crucially, there are absolutely no drums.
None. It mimics the physical feeling of being completely alone in an empty room, lost in your own circular grieving thoughts. It's pensive, it feels a little lost.
It creates a state of tension.
Yep.
As modern listeners, we are biologically and culturally conditioned by pop music to expect a beat. We want the rhythm to drop so our bodies know how to move.
Right.
And Kid Harpoon and Tyler Johnson play with that biological expectation masterfully, utilizing an audio engineering technique often described as the slingshot effect.
The slingshot. This blew my mind when I read about it. Okay, so in almost every pop, rock, or dance song on the radio, when the big chorus hits, the heaviest drum beat, usually the kick drum and the crash cymbal, slams down on beat 1, the downbeat. It is the musical equivalent of a green light telling your brain, the chorus is here, the energy has arrived, start dancing. But in Flowers, they do the exact opposite. On beat 1 of the chorus, right when she sings the word buy in, I can buy myself flowers, there's an intentional, jarring, absolute silence in the drum track.
They pull the entire rhythm section back. They create a void.
Yes, it creates this momentary vacuum of tension. The best analogy I can think of is pulling a vacuum seal on a jar. They suck all the air, all the sound out of the room for a fraction of a second.
Which is so disorienting.
It is. The pressure builds up instantly because your brain is screaming for that beat. And then on beat 2, bam! They break the seal and unleash the beat. The sound rushes back in, and it feels explosive simply because of the absolute silence that preceded it.
What they unleash when they break that seal is a highly specific, historically loaded rhythm. The bass line that drops is a hybrid of 2 distinct genres.
Okay, what are they?
On one hand, it utilizes a staccato skipping rhythm often found in norteño or Tejano music, what the producer refers to in the breakdown as a cowboy country. It has musicality to it. But it marries that skipping rhythm to a driving 1970s disco funk sensibility.
Oh, it sounds so much like the iconic bass line in Gloria Gaynor's ultimate survival anthem, I Will Survive.
That is almost certainly not an accident. They are intentionally invoking the musical language of historical survival and resilience. But the real genius of the production is the specific slap bass technique they use.
Wait, explain the mechanics of slap bass for a second. What is actually happening to the instrument to make that sound?
Normally, a bass player plucks the thick strings with their fingertips, creating a round, warm thumping sound. But in slap bass, a technique pioneered by funk musicians like Larry Graham in the 70s, the player literally strikes the string hard with the bony side of their thumb, forcing the metal string to violently smack against the metal frets of the guitar neck.
Oh, wow.
It creates a sharp, percussive, metallic crack or pop sound before the actual note rings out.
It's aggressive. And that slap bass crack only arrives after that silent vacuum seal moment on beat 1. It acts as a physical jump scare of joy.
It creates an immense amount of dynamic forward momentum. The red producers in our sources analogize the bass player to a physical projectile being launched by that slingshot silence. They dub this bouncing, aggressive, joyful bass line the Super Funk Man.
The Super Funk Man arrives to save the day. I love that. But Super Funk Man isn't flying alone in this track. There is another crucial, highly subtle element to this production, and it's a weird one. The Lodgebond mirror synth.
Yes, the synthesizer that sounds somewhat like a reedy woodwind or an oboe playing a little counter melody in the background.
Okay, before we talk about what the synth does, we have to explain the term Lodgebond, because I had to look this up. Lodgebond is an actual constructed human language created in 1987 by the Logical Language Group. Its entire purpose is to have absolutely zero ambiguity. In English, we have double meanings, sarcasm, and gray areas. Lodgebond was mathematically designed to perfectly, unambiguously reflect logical truth. So calling this instrument the Lodgebond mirror synth means it is the musical embodiment of absolute, undeniable truth.
And its function in the song changes entirely depending on the lyrical narrative. In the verses, when Miley is singing about the house burning down, when she is admitting she started to cry, this oboe-like synth is quiet, meandering, and repetitive.
It kind of wanders.
Yeah, it mimics her circular, confused, grieving thoughts. It's the sound of someone pacing a room, unsure of what to do next.
But when the chorus hits, its function completely flips.
Exactly. When the chorus hits and she makes the decision to choose herself, the synth becomes a precise, unambiguous responder. It acts as a mirror reflecting her physical actions.
Give me an example.
When she sings, I Can Buy Myself Flowers, the synth plays a distinct, sharp, ascending melody that leaves absolutely no room for doubt. It translates her internal emotional realization into an external, undeniable physical reality. It's the musical equivalent of a judge banging a gavel and saying, "This is fact. I'm actually doing this."
That is so incredibly subtle but effective, and the producers also use some highly technical, almost invisible digital tricks to heighten this feeling of clarity and impact. The Ableton tutorial mentions 2 specific things: sidechain compression to gate the drums, and an OTT plugin.
Oh, these are great techniques.
Now I need an ELI 5 explain, like I'm 5 for both of these. Let's start with sidechain compression. If I'm looking at the audio wave of this song on a computer screen, what is physically happening when you gate the drums?
Let's imagine the kick drum and the cymbals are 2 different people trying to talk at the same time. If they both yell, it gets muddy and confusing.
Makes sense.
Sidechain compression is a digital tool that tells the cymbals every single time the kick drum speaks, you need to instantly drop your volume to 0 for a fraction of a second, and then immediately come back up.
Oh.
So when you look at the audio wave, every time the bass drum hits, there's a microscopic valley carved out of the other instruments. It creates a choppy, incredibly tight pumping rhythm. It cleans up the audio space so the beat hits your chest harder.
It essentially forces the entire track to breathe in time with the kick drum.
Okay, that makes sense. Now what about the OTT plugin? The source says they used it on the string section to bring out the hair on the bow.
OTT stands for over-the-top multi-band compression. It is a very aggressive digital effect used widely in electronic music. What it does is take the quietest, most subtle parts of a sound and forces them to be incredibly loud while simultaneously squashing the loudest parts down.
So it flattens the dynamics entirely.
Yeah.
Yes, but in doing so, it reveals the microscopic textures of the sound. When a violinist drags a bow across a string, there is a tiny, scratchy, physical friction sound created by the rosin on the horsehair of the bow.
Usually you'd never hear that.
Normally that sound is too quiet to hear over the note itself. But applying OTT compression forces that scratchy physical hair sound to the front of the mix. It makes the digital string sound gritty, physical, and real. Almost like a live 1970s disco orchestra is sitting right there in the room with you, sweating and playing their instruments.
It adds humanity to the digital code. All of these elements, the OTT plugin making the strings sweat, the sidechain gating, forcing the track to breathe, the slingshot silence, sucking the air out of the room. All of this contributes to a crucial audio engineering principle known as perceived loudness.
Which is the holy grail of pop music production. You can only turn a track up so high on the radio or on Spotify before the digital file physically distorts and clips. You have a hard ceiling of decibels. So if you can't actually make the chorus any louder on the volume dial, how do you make it feel massive to the listener?
You drop the volume of the preceding moment to near zero.
Exactly. You manipulate the contrast. The brain perceives the ensuing chorus as an explosion of sound, purely because it emerged from a vacuum. It's an auditory illusion. It's a psychological trick that makes the emotional empowerment of the lyrics feel physically overwhelming to your nervous system.
So if we tie the lyrical autopsy and the Bowerbird biology back into this production, this exact musical slingshot, this manipulation of perceived loudness, is what allows the song to literally hack our nervous systems. It physically takes the listener from a place of distress, the burning house, into a state of eustress.
Eustress being the psychological term for positive, motivating, energizing stress. The kind of stress you feel right before a big game or when you are finally taking action to fix a problem.
Right. And this connects directly to the research in our sources from music psychologist Dr. Kelly Jakubowski regarding how music transports us to specific autobiographical memories and alters our current emotional state. She talks about mapping music on an x-axis of valence, plotting negative, sad, minor key music on the left side of the axis against positive, peaceful, major key music on the right side.
When humans experience a breakup or trauma, we instinctively gravitate toward the negative side of that valence axis. We listen to sad, mournful music to feel seen, to validate our pain, and to process the distress.
It's why Bruno Mars's original song was so successful.
Exactly. But what makes Flowers unique is that it refuses to stay on the negative side of that axis, even though it is fundamentally a song about a devastating loss.
It reminds me of the analysis in the sources of the 1983 hit by the progressive rock band Yes. The central paradox of that song is that being the owner of a music heart is actually portrayed as a position of profound strength, clarity, and superiority, especially when compared to being the owner of a broken heart.
It's a vital distinction. A broken heart implies active damage, victimhood, and dependency on the person who broke it. You are waiting for them to fix it.
Yeah, you're broken.
But a lonely heart implies complete autonomy. It might be solitary, it might be quiet, but it is whole. It is yours. Flowers takes that 1980s concept of autonomous loneliness and supercharges it for the 2020s.
It absolutely shuts the pain gates, it stops the bleeding. And the way it does this is fascinating because the actions she describes in the chorus are almost childlike in their simplicity. Think about the specific physical actions she is bragging about. I can buy myself flowers just to look at them, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours.
These are acts of pure, solitary, sensory curiosity. They require no one else.
Yes, it bypasses all the incredibly complex, devastating adult trauma of a Hollywood divorce. It ignores the lawyers, the public infidelity rumors, the press statements, the million-dollar properties burning down, and it returns the listener to what psychologists call the philosopher's baby view.
Right, the philosopher's baby view.
When you are a toddler, joy isn't tied to a mortgage or a marriage certificate. Joy is just just watching a bug crawl across the sidewalk. Joy is feeling the physical sensation of putting your toes in the sand at the beach, focusing the massive, explosive energy of the chorus on these incredibly simple, solitary actions. The song provides a neurological reset for the listener. It grounds you in your own physical body.
It is what the academic sources refer to as a revolutionarily age-creative or historically creative moment in pop culture. It shifts an entire paradigm.
How so?
For decades, the classic pop music tragedy narrative, think of the sweeping melodramatic 1950s ballads by artists like Frank Sinatra or Brenda Lee, was entirely about dying of a broken heart. The message was, you cannot survive without the other person. If you leave me, I will cease to exist.
The ultimate codependency.
Exactly. Flowers takes that entire historical narrative, acknowledges the pain of it in the verses, but then physically pivots in the chorus to provide a modern blueprint for self-care. It provides a logical, actionable, physical response to emotional devastation.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here, because we are talking about this song like it's a piece of high art, a psychological masterclass. And yes, Flowers broke records. It spent a staggering 106 combined weeks at #1 on the Billboard radio charts.
Which is massive.
It spent 57 weeks at #1 on the adult contemporary chart. That is an insane, almost inescapable amount of airplay. Is it possible that the song's massive, enduring success isn't because it's a complex psychological tool, but actually because it's a bit inelegant?
Inelegant how?
Like, it's very repetitive. It doesn't have a giant Whitney Houston vocal run or a complex bridge. Is it just a slow burn, a comfortable, unchallenging background track that you can play in an office cubicle or a grocery store without fatiguing people, rather than an immediate, brilliant piece of art?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how humans neurologically use music to heal, that repetition isn't a flaw, it's the defining feature. Yeah. The ultimate emotional regulators in music require a walking, repetitive, predictable heartbeat. When someone is in a state of active distress or grief, their nervous system is already overloaded.
True.
A massive, unpredictable sonic firework, like a sudden key change or a screaming vocal run, can actually be anxiety-inducing because it demands too much cognitive attention.
It's too much input for an already overloaded system.
Exactly. The steady, four-on-the-floor disco beat, the highly repetitive cowboy cumbia bass line, it creates a predictable, safe container. It is sonic reliability. It allows the listener to feel safe enough to lower their psychological defenses and process their own grief in the background of their daily life while they're driving to work or folding laundry.
Oh, so the repetitive groove is essentially the therapy couch. It holds you steady and supports your weight so your brain can work through the trauma subconsciously.
It reliably regulates the nervous system, which is why people didn't get sick of hearing it for over 100 weeks. It felt good to be inside that safe, predictable container.
That is brilliant. And it connects to a much larger narrative happening outside the song itself. Miley reclaiming her personal story, regulating her own narrative, and turning her trauma into a bulletproof asset mirrors a massive shift happening across the entire music industry right now. Artists are fiercely reclaiming their business and artistic autonomy from traditional corporate structures.
The parallels to Taylor Swift's current career trajectory are impossible to ignore in this context.
Oh, absolutely. Taylor Swift is the ultimate parallel for this kind of cultural reclamation. Look at the economic impact of her Eras tour, which, by the way, our sources explicitly point out, boosted the local economy of Glendale, Arizona, more than the actual NFL Super Bowl that was held in the exact same stadium.
That's just wild.
And look at her unprecedented Taylor's version re-recording strategy. Swift completely disintermediated the traditional music industry. When her master recordings were sold out from under her to an investment firm similar to how Tempo Music bought the rights to Bruno Mars's song, she didn't just complain. She took direct control, re-recorded her entire life's work, and completely gamified her relationship with her fans.
She incentivized loyalty. By leaving hidden clues, vault tracks, and Easter eggs, she built a massive, fiercely loyal community that views listening to her music as a collaborative project against the corporate music industry.
She transformed her biggest vulnerability, the loss of her life's work, into the greatest display of artistic and financial leverage in modern music history. And Miley is executing a very similar, highly effective playbook. She is shedding her old studio-managed persona.
Right, the older versions of herself.
She's letting the wild, unpredictable, foam finger-waving bangers era Miley die. She's stepping out of the Disney shadow entirely. By using her real-life vulnerability, the very real documented pain of her divorce, and the terrifying loss of her home, she is cementing an authentic, recession-proof grassroots support system. She isn't hiding behind a manufactured pop star image anymore. She's putting the messy reality of her life on tape and trusting the audience to hold it.
And encoding your messy reality into your work, hiding your truest self inside a consumable pop product, is a time-honored tradition for the absolute greats of the industry. Artists constantly hide the true meaning of their realities within the mathematical structures of their pop songs.
The sources have some wild and credible examples of this hidden architecture. Take Prince's legendary hit Little Red Corvette. For decades, everyone assumed it was just a sexy song about a fast sports car. But the sources reveal it's actually about a fast-moving woman he met who is driving a massive, clunky Mercury Marauder. But Prince knew Little Red Corvette sounded sexier and fit the pop radio mold better, so he hid the truth behind a consumable metaphor.
It's so smart.
Or take another Prince classic, Let's Go Crazy. It sounds like the ultimate, mindless 1980s party anthem. But Prince actually wrote it as a deep, urgent, spiritual battle between God and Satan, where the elevator he sings about is literally the devil trying to bring your soul down to hell.
The pop exterior hides a profound interior. Consider Seal's massive 90s hit, Kiss from a Rose. The reason that song feels so mysteriously unsettling, yet incredibly beautiful and cinematic, is mathematical. Seal hit a highly unusual 9/8 time signature inside a mainstream pop ballad.
Wait, how does a 9/8 time signature actually clash chords or create unease? What is the math doing to our brains there?
Most pop music is in 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a steady, even march. A 9/8 time signature means there are 9 eighth notes per measure. It often groups into 3 sets of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I can hear that.
It creates a rolling waltz-like feel. But because 9 is an odd number, it inherently feels slightly unresolved compared to the evenness of 4/4. It's the musical equivalent of walking with one leg slightly longer than the other. There is a constant subconscious push and pull. Seal layered this complex, rolling rhythm over clashing major and minor chords to create a subconscious sense of unease and longing the listener can't quite identify but deeply feels.
It's brilliant. Or look at The Weeknd, whose entire empire of autonomy began when he was folding clothes at American Apparel, utterly anonymous, releasing dark, drug-fueled R&B mixtapes on YouTube for free. He decided to quit the traditional path and own his creative output entirely on his own terms before ever signing a major deal.
All of these artists built hidden structural integrities into their careers and their music.
It makes me think of architecture. Think of these hidden structures. Seal's weird rolling time signatures, Prince's spiritual metaphors, The Weeknd's strategic anonymity, or Miley and Kid Harpoon's silent, vacuum-sealed downbeats on the chorus. Think of them like the literal bones of a house.
Like that.
When you walk through a beautifully designed, finished home, you don't look at the framing studs inside the walls or the concrete foundation joists in the basement. You don't see them at all. You just see the paint and the furniture. But those hidden, unglamorous bones are exactly what keep the roof from collapsing on your head when a storm comes. Miley's hidden pain, the literal ashes of her Malibu bower, the slingshot silence of the Ableton production, those are the structural bones that keep Flowers standing so tall, allowing millions of people to find shelter inside it.
That is a perfect synthesis of the material. The complex, often painful architecture of the song is what successfully supports the massive weight of the global emotion it generated.
Which brings us to the ultimate, overarching point of this entire deep dive. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of an individual artist healing from a highly publicized Hollywood divorce. But the biology of music, the way it regulates the nervous system and creates a safe container for grief, scales up. Whether an artist is dealing with a personal breakup, or whether a group of people are addressing the deepest, most entrenched global divides, music remains the ultimate unifying human language.
Because it operates on a frequency that completely bypasses our intellectual and political defenses. It speaks directly to the nervous system.
Exactly. We have a source here that details a grassroots music festival uniting Israeli and Palestinian youth. And again, I must state this impartially and explicitly. We are focusing solely on the source material's message of art as a unifier, taking absolutely no political stance on the conflict itself. But the raw, undeniable human emotion in this setting is profound. These youth, from deeply divided backgrounds, came together together for a special performance, singing songs about resilience, including Andy Grammer's Don't Give Up on Me. By singing together, they were literally synchronizing their breathing and their heart rates.
The physical act of group singing forces a biological synchronization, and the original lyrics from the Melinda video source we reviewed capture this shared human condition.
Yes, the translated lyrics she sings are devastatingly beautiful. I sing for the stones beneath my feet. I sing to lighten the load of the wind. I sing to appease the demons within, to share the pain and decide to reconcile.
At its absolute core, whether it is Miley Cyrus singing a driving disco funk track to appease the demons of her burned-down house and a failed marriage, or youth choirs in a conflict zone singing to heal deep, generational historical wounds, the mechanism of music is the same. It provides a shared, safe, predictable space.
Yes, a safe space.
It allows us to process unimaginable pain, regulate our overloaded nervous systems, and ultimately choose to step forward into a new, self-determined reality.
It is the ultimate tool for human survival. And that concludes our journey today. Thank you to you, the listener, for joining this deep dive. As we've seen, Flowers is so much more than a catchy radio hit designed to play while you're driving to the grocery store. It is a biological, psychological, legal, and musical masterclass in survival. It takes the muddy, confusing, messy x-ray of a broken human heart, and instead of trying to cleanly snap the bone back into place and pretend it never happened, it teaches you how to dance with the cast on.
It embraces the messiness of objective realism, and it builds a new, stronger house out of the ashes of the old one.
But I want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over on your own as you listen to the radio this week. We've talked extensively about how pop music is increasingly becoming an arena for these highly specific, autobiographical response songs. Miley responding to Bruno Mars, responding to Liam Hemsworth, TLC responding to Sporty Thieves. But what happens when the subject of the song decides to write their response? If Liam Hemsworth were to sit down and write an album answering the narrative of Flowers, what would that sound like? Will the future of music just become an endless public dialogue of competing memories? And if so, as listeners streaming these songs and picking apart the Easter eggs, are we just becoming the jury in the court of public opinion?